I'm so bored of doing emails. I have no time to do a video at all today, but I just thought I'd do a quick one because it's much more interesting than replying to boring emails about shoot times and stuff, so. Anyway, this video in particular is about a new camera announcement. To be honest, I thought it had been made weeks ago because there were so many leaks on it. But it turns out that the Panasonic Lumix G9 was only announced 39 minutes ago. And the reason I thought it was worth talking about was, well, A, because I haven't got time to make a normal video, but B, because it might be my next new camera. Now, I don't know if you'll have seen it or not, but a couple of weeks ago I did a video called something like why I'm ditching full frame cameras. And there were some people in the comments that wanted to know what I was moving on to next. So some people thought I might be moving to Fuji, some people suggested Fuji. I love Fuji cameras. Every time I see someone with a Fuji camera, I'm just like, just jealous, because they look awesome, which is besides the point. Cameras don't need to look good, but they take really, really incredible photos, and I've definitely considered Fuji cameras, but I've definitely also been drawn to Micro Four Thirds cameras full time, like the GH5 and stuff, because, well, for a few reasons. See, a lot of people get put off by the small sensor. I love the small sensor, and that's because you get smaller bodies, smaller lenses, much better stabilization. The aspect ratio is awesome for me. I love 4:3. A lot of my biggest prints are in 4:3, like 48 inches by 36 inches and 40 inches by 30 inches. So it means that I can compose a shot without having to worry about cropping and stuff later. I work on a lot of social media campaigns, and 4:3 works quite well for social media. You get a bigger depth of field with the smaller sensor, which for me is a plus. And over this past year, I've really, really enjoyed making videos, and I think making videos will be a bigger part of what I like to do going forward. I've really enjoyed making them on the G85, this camera that I'm filming on now. And it's kind of dawned on me that if weight is an issue, as I said it was in the full frame video, then carrying only one system makes a lot of sense, because then my backup body is exactly the same system, which means that it can share lenses. So if my main camera falls off a cliff or I drop it, which happens, then I can still use all my best lenses on my backup body. So it makes a lot of sense to just have one system. And also, I've actually really enjoyed shooting stills on the G85 too. So I think for me, moving to Micro Four Thirds full time does make a lot of sense. I mean, it's not for everyone, but for me and the kind of things that I shoot, I think it's perfect. Anyway, I assume if you're still here and you've not wandered off to another video because essentially I'm just sat on a bed nattering away, you might be interested in the G9 and the specs involved in the G9 in case you haven't seen them yet. So I'll run through them and explain why they're either good or bad or indifferent to me, and why I think this camera might work for me going forward. We'll start with the sensor. 20.3 megapixel sensor. It's pretty standard actually for Micro Four Thirds now, but it's plenty more than I need. Great. A high burst rate. So this G9 can shoot like 20 or 60 frames per second dependent on your autofocus. I'll never need that kind of performance, I don't think. And the only time I can think it would be helpful to me and the things I shoot is because using a Micro Four Thirds sensor with, in theory, less dynamic range than a bigger sensor, I might want to bracket more. And if I'm bracketing, it'd be good to get the shots as fast as possible so that there's less ghosting. And it sounds like the electronic shutter might let me get those shots really, really quickly. So that might be a plus. Stabilization is 6.5 stops, which is just boom, basically renders tripods completely pointless in lots and lots of situations, which I love because, as I've said in the past, weight is an issue for me. I don't like carrying around big, heavy systems and cameras and lots of gear. I find it just annoying. So yeah, if I don't have to take a tripod, that is awesome. What I do find a bit weird though is one of the other standout features of this camera is a high resolution 80 megapixel mode, which basically stitches like 6 or 8 or something images together to create a huge file with lots and lots of resolution. Trouble is, you need a tripod for that mode, and that doesn't really make sense to me because I can't imagine me wanting to take a tripod out just for this high resolution mode. I mean, I don't know how often I'm going to want to shoot files that are 80 megapixels and 1 gigabyte in size. That seems a bit like overkill, but you know, for some other people it might work, and I might have clients that might find that appealing. So yeah, we'll see how much I use that. And actually, this isn't new technology. It's been used on Olympus for a couple of years now. Sony have just introduced it. So if you've used it on either of those two systems, or you've found it somewhere else, let me know how much you've used the high resolution modes that move the sensor and take lots of different pictures to create a super high res image, because be interested to know if people think it's just like a gimmick or whether it's actually useful. Freeze proof, weatherproof, dust proof, windproof, proof, everything proof. Yes, love it. Hate having to be fragile with cameras. I hate carrying cameras in the rain and worrying that you're going to break them. So yes, I need to get rid of this double thumb thing. I'm doing my own head in, so God knows what you think. Flippy, arty, tilty screen, love it. I mean, that's pretty common on most mirrorless cameras now to have that sort of screen, but it's still a feature I really appreciate, because if you're shooting high, low, or shooting yourself when you're doing video or whatever, it's very handy. And dual card slots, which, to be honest, deserves a double thumb up, because they are potentially a lifesaver. Now, a lot of people say, well, why do you need a dual card slot? Cards hardly ever fail, and you're right. I have had cards fail on me before, not in a job, and if it happened in a job, I would be just livid, because I'd be stood with a camera system worth thousands of pounds in one hand and a card worth like 30 quid in the other, and the 30 quid card would have let me down and lost me a load of work and potentially a job and a client for the future. And that would have been completely resolved if a camera had room for a second card. So I would never shoot on a job with a camera that only had one card slot, because they've corrupted on me before, and it only takes once for you to not completely trust them again in future. So having dual card slots is awesome for redundancy. It also gives you more options. You can give one of the cards to the client, or you can keep it in a separate place. So yeah, dual card slots rock. I think they're really, really underrated, and I'm really pleased that they've put a dual card slot in this camera, because it means it's actually an option for me. Yeah, so that's that. This camera isn't out for another couple of months. I think it's out in January of 2018. And I think with a 12 to 60 Leica lens that I would go for, it's about £2,000, which is probably about the right price given what else is on the market, I think. I'm hoping that I get to test it before it comes out, but I don't know anyone at Panasonic, so I don't really know how likely that is. But in the meantime, I think on specs, this becomes the front runner for the camera to replace my D750, which I will be getting rid of. There was something else I was going to briefly talk about in this video before I go back to procrastinating with emails. Calendar. My calendar. Thank you so much to everyone that's bought one. There are 3 left, so we're nearly sold out. So if you want one and you just haven't got around to doing it yet, I'd urge you to do it sooner than later to avoid disappointment. And that is it. I need to get better at saying goodbye in these videos. I think I drag it out way too long, but in this case I think it's mostly because I don't want to go and do my emails. I'll see you next time. Hopefully the next video I won't just be sat on a bed, and I'll be doing something that's a bit more entertaining. But yeah, until then, have a lovely few days, and what are you up to actually? Sorry, I'll go.